morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park. That's what it's called, Radio Park here in Racine.
Take two.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air, broadcasting from Radio Park.
Nice.
In Racine. You can always join us. The number is the same. You can call, you can text 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We have a jam-packed show for you today. Coming up at 10:33, there was an article that kind of popped up in the Wisconsin Independent about some farmers from western part of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Who traveled to Washington, D.C. to talk about the Farm Bill and getting things done for Wisconsin farmers. And their meeting with Derek Van Orden reportedly didn't go very well.
It did not.
So we're going to talk to one of the farmers who was there, talk about his exchange with Derek Van Orden, what his response was to affect, these are his constituents.
Yes, and these are the people, he sits on the Ag Committee.
Seems important.
So his focus should be on his district, of course, but also on the farmers of Wisconsin. And we'll talk about what happened. Yeah,
we'll talk about that meeting. Kristin Alfhiem, who is running for the state Senate in the 18th district,
correct,
is going to join us at 11:06. Our very own Civic Media executive producer, Jamie Martison, will be here at 11:33. We have this great election special that is going to air tonight. And if you have questions about voting, early voting, absentee voting, all of those things, Jamie is going to be able to explain. They have a great panel of guests. And so they're going to be able to break that all down for you. I highly encourage you to check it out tonight, starting at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing speakers on that show.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. So join us for that. And then we will, of course, wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. This thing was found by Greg.
Yes, This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Funeral edition. Funeral edition.
Excellent. If you ever have a thing that should not be, send it into Greg and me. At Jane Says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS at civicmedia.us. Don't forget to, in-person absentee voting starts today.
Correct.
Across Wisconsin. And if you want to find out more about where you can go to vote early in person, go to myvote.wi.gov. All you have to do is plug in your address. Everything is right there. It will tell you everything you need. It's really a great resource.
It's a wonderful resource. It's very simple. You cannot request an absentee ballot anymore.
That time has passed.
That time has passed. You can now vote early, though. And we had a question on the text yesterday about the verbiage of it. So absentee voting and mail-in voting, that's when you get your absentee ballot sent to you, mailed to you. You fill it out, you get your witness, you put it in the envelope, you send it off to your clerk's office. They will open it on the day of the election and register it as a regular vote, but you did it early.
Right.
Absentee in person is when you go to your clerk's office or wherever you're designated, whether it's City Hall, clerk's office, you will go to that specific place. You can find out by going to myvote.wi.gov. It will tell you where you can go, and that you will vote in person early. And those votes will also be put into an envelope, witnessed, put away for a while, and then on election day, it will be opened up and counted as it would with all the other ballots. And then finally, the regular one is, or the normal one
is voting in person on the day.
I shouldn't say normal. The traditional way is voting in person on the day on November 5th on that Tuesday at your polling place.
Whichever way you vote.
Yes.
Please vote.
Yes.
Go vote. And if you have someone in your family or if you have friends who are just like, yeah, my vote doesn't matter. Yes, your vote absolutely matters.
Yes.
It really does, especially in a swing state like Wisconsin where the margins are so small. And we're talking 15 to 20,000 votes. That is not many.
No.
That could be a handful of votes from every county in the state.
And that's how Wisconsin usually is. It's usually a couple of votes per county. It's not
overwhelming.
Nobody wins by landslide since like Reagan. And since then it's been neck and neck, razor thin. Your vote matters. Get out and vote. Make a plan. Take friends.
Yep. Make it a thing.
Go get some brunch.
Yeah, go vote. Go get brunch. Go do a spa thing. Go get pedicures. Whatever makes you happy.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself, but go vote. It is absolutely critical that we all get out and vote. And also, please don't be surprised if the results are not determined by midnight on November 5th.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the case in Wisconsin because our state Senate, for whatever reason, elected not to allow early count to start.
Correct.
There was a bipartisan measure in the assembly to allow counting to begin early, got to the Senate where it died.
Yeah. It wasn't even brought to the Senate.
Yeah. It never even came up. So if you are wondering why we don't have the results in Wisconsin by midnight on November 5th, talk to, I don't know, Devin Lemahue.
Yeah, we'll get that number for you.
Sure.
It's
We'll look
easy.
that up. But just don't be, there's no ballot dumps in the middle of the night.
No, and just be patient. This is going to be, last year, we found out the Saturday after Election Day. It's most likely going to be longer than that, unless there's some extraordinary, like...
Well, if they're hand counting all the ballots in Georgia.
They will not be.
Oh, that's right.
The court said no to that, which is surprising.
Yeah, it really is. But anyway, early voting is underway in Wisconsin. Get out. Get involved in the process. Be a voter.
Be cool.
Everybody who's anybody is a voter.
Hey, Jane, are you a voter?
Darn right I'm a voter. This was kind of a big thing last night in Brookfield at the Sharon Lynn Wilson Center. Charlie Sykes, of course, for decades, a longtime conservative broadcaster in Wisconsin, very, very influential.
Yeah.
I think we can thank Charlie for Scott Walker and Ron Johnson and Rebecca Clayfish and there's a bunch of, I think Sean Duffy.
Honestly,
But he said he's changed. He has drastically changed. And now he's a commentator on MSNBC. He was, of course, the founder of one of the founders of the Bulwark.
Yeah.
But he was the moderator last night for Vice President Kamala Harris and former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just think about that. Now, we'll let Charlie explain it. Calvin, play clip number 1, please, from last night.
Welcome to this production of The Odd Couple. Okay, and it really is odd. I never thought that I would be here. You never thought that I would be here. But that's because this is not a normal election. This is not an election between Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives. So that's why we're doing this, dogs and cats together in this strange moment. It's why we're having this conversation here in Brookfield, Wisconsin, crucial Waukesha County. But we're not going to be talking about a few things. We're not going to be talking about sharks and electrocutions.
Oh.
We are not going to be going through Tony Evers' 40-minute playlist and swaying to the music. We're not going to be talking about Jewish space lasers or Arnold Palmer's putting game.
There it is.
Nice.
That's the other event down the road.
I mean,
Charlie Sykes last night doing the intro.
doing a hot
Doing
five.
some stand-up. Yeah, that was actually pretty amusing. Introducing Vice President Kamala Harris and former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney. They talked about a lot of things, including Social Security.
Yes.
And there is a new report that you can find in Bloomberg that looks at the two proposals, the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign proposals on handling Social Security. And the outlook for what would happen to the program under Donald Trump is essentially in 6 years, it will be insolvent. So, Calvin, let's play that clip number 2, please, from Vice President Kamala Harris.
What I and you and I think most of us know is that we have many, many seniors in our country where their Social Security check is their only form of income. It's everything and the only thing they have to live on, to pay rent, groceries, all of that. And so we must protect Social Security. If you look at Donald Trump's Project 2025, the plan that they have if he is elected or reelected president, it would attack Social Security, it would attack Medicare. And back to the point about just what is in the interest of dignity. The President of the United States should have as one of their highest concerns the dignity of the American people. And in particular, those who have lived a productive life, who deserve to be able to retire and go into their senior years with the dignity of not worrying about whether they're going to have a roof over their head or be able to eat.
Kamala Harris last night talking about Social Security and the importance of Social Security. Something else, Greg, that we have not gotten around to in depth at all, or even if we just glanced on it, is Kamala Harris has talked about changing things so there can be more in-home care.
Yes.
Which would be game-changing, I think, for so many people.
Yes, she has put forth plans to make it easier for people to give care at home, get paid, more pay. It's some people, that's their full-time job, is taking care of a loved one.
Absolutely.
And there are now mechanisms to get paid, and it's about now making it actually sustainable as a life, so you are not living paycheck to paycheck.
And I think too, it would. I'm assuming it would allow caregivers carry such a burden.
Yeah,
they really do. So this would allow them to maybe take a little break.
Yeah.
From their caregiving.
Yeah.
Because that's a full-time job.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely a full-time job. We have several more clips we want to play from last night from Vice President Kamala Harris and former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney. They appeared last night in Brookfield. It was kind of a barnstorming of the two ladies. Hit several states yesterday, all battleground states. So we're going to continue this conversation again. You can always join us at 855-752-4842. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
She gets mad and she starts to cry. She takes a swing, man. She can't help. She don't mean no harm. She just don't know what else to do about it. Jason.
morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, the Calvinator, coming to you live from our studio in Radio Park here in Racine. You can always join us. You can call, you can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Elon continues to actively ruin. After the 10:30 news, we're going to talk to a farmer in western Wisconsin who traveled to Washington to meet with Derek Van Orden, who is his representative, and apparently things did not go very smoothly. We're going to get more details about that with our chat with Derin Van Rudin, coming up after the 10:30 news about Derek Van Orden.
There it is.
So that's on the way. But we were talking before we went to the break about the joint appearance last night between Vice President Kamala Harris and former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney at the Sherilyn Wilson Center in Brookfield. Kamala Harris at one point mentioned again how many people in the former Trump administration are not supporting him a second time around. Calvin, play clip number 3, please, from Kamala Harris last night.
Take it from the people who know him best. His former chief of staff when he was president, 2 former defense secretaries, his national security advisor, and of course his vice president, who have all in one way or another used the word that he is unfit to be president again and is dangerous. Listen to the report that what his former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a general, said about him, that he is fascist to the core.
We had retired Major General Cliff Stanley on from National Security Leaders for America yesterday. And he said as well, a good leader isn't afraid to say, I don't know about something.
Yes.
That's why you surround yourself with people of varying opinions, not just people who agree with you all the time. That's not a good way to make decisions.
Well, we also know that Donald Trump isn't equipped to be able to say, I don't know, or I was wrong, or maybe I don't know everything, or can I get some help? It is, I am right. I'm always right.
And he has said that. I am always right.
And if for some reason I'm not right, I'm still right, and it's someone else's fault that you thought I was wrong.
We're going to play a clip from Liz Cheney as well from last night. Calvin, play clip number 4, please. This is former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
It's not about party. It's about right and wrong. And I certainly have many Republicans who will say to me, I can't be public. They do worry about a whole range of things, including violence, but they'll do the right thing. And I would just remind people, if you're at all concerned, you can vote your conscience and not ever have to say a word to anybody. And there will be millions of Republicans who do that on November 5th, vote for Vice President Harris.
This is something that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, the silent voters.
Yes.
The people who don't put up yard signs and they don't scream from the mountaintops and they don't post on Facebook and they just keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of folks like that.
And we've said it before on this show too. You don't have to tell your parents, your teachers, your spouse, your boss, your anybody, your best friend. You don't even have to tell them who you're voting for. And your vote's private. You vote for who you want, and then you go home, and that's it. And you can leave it as private as you want it to be. Don't worry about that.
Well, and again, it is registered that you voted.
Yes.
But not for whom you cast your ballot.
Correct.
And we have, of course, Greg.
Yeah.
That ad.
Which one?
The latest political ad from a completely real and totally legitimate super PAC.
I heard it was totally legitimate.
It's totally, completely, absolutely, authentically real.
And super legit and super real.
Yeah, and super real. So, Calvin, let's play that ad, please, from this new super PAC.
And now a message from a Wisconsin voter.
Yeah, hi, this is Betty from Rhinelander. I've been voting for the same party all my life. It's been okay, I guess. Now, my parents taught me to be patient. All things come to those who wait. But for too long now, it seems like some politicians in Wisconsin think their job is to make sure nothing gets done. What the heck is that all about? Take us back to the good old days. You mean back to polio and outhouses? There was nothing good about that, I can tell you. Oh yeah, they talk a good game at election time, but when it comes to helping folks with poisoned water, closing hospitals and childcare, where are they when it comes to actually fixing it? They gavel in and gavel out and go on vacation. It makes me so gosh darn mad. So November 5th, I'm voting a different way. I'm just not going to tell my husband, or my sister, or my garden club, or my Facebook friends, or say anything on the Substack I have about extreme knitting. But I might tell my granddaughters.
Paid for by the Let's Knit Crazy Super PAC.
I'm Betty, and I approve this message. Let's just keep it between us.
You can be just like Betty.
Be like Betty.
You don't have to tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that reinforces also, it's not just the two people at the top of the ticket. All the other down ballot races are very, very important, especially here in Wisconsin, when we would like to see some things actually get done. Like money that has already been approved to address PFAS, like money that has already been approved to usher in a new literacy program. That's money, they're all still sitting on it.
Hospital money.
Hospital money for Western Wisconsin. So it's not just the presidential race. It's not just the Senate race, which is also critical
Yes.
if the Democrats are going to hold the Senate. But all of the down ballot races, just think about who actually does things to benefit the people that they represent.
Mm-hmm.
And if your representative has been there for a long time and just doesn't seem to get very much done, it might be time to make a change.
And they seem proud of it, too.
They do seem somewhat proud of it. I believe Senator Ron Johnson has even said it would be better if they just never passed another piece of legislation.
If your assembly member, your assembly rep is a Republican who's on the Joint Finance Committee, look them up. Just see what Wisconsin is not benefiting from because of that.
And always, you can contact them.
Yes, you can.
You can call them. Just be polite.
Be very polite.
Be very polite. I believe that from the. I really do
Yes.
want you to be polite. So yeah, maybe just give them a call.
Give them a call.
Say hi.
Tell them
News.
Betty sent you.
Tell them Betty sent you. News is coming up next. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the vast, statewide, countrywide, global Civic Media Radio Network.
Good morning, Derin. Can you hear me all right?
Good morning, and yes, I can.
All right, you're sounding good. We come back in just over a minute.
Okay, sounds good.
And then, Derin, what title should we refer to you as?
President of the Wisconsin Farmers Union.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
I ain't gonna work on Maggie's farm no more.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Cal B on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Give us a call at 855-752-4842 or leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up after the 11 o'clock news, Kristin Alfhiem will be joining us. She is running in the Senate District 18. We will be talking to her, hear about what she's hearing about when she's knocking on doors. That comes up after 11 o'clock. Right now, though, so glad he is back on the show. He's the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union, Derin Van Rudin. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
So glad to have you back. We have talked about the Farm Bill for several months now because it continues to sit there and nothing gets done. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Friday night debate between Tammy Baldwin and Eric Hovde. He did have a comment about the Farm Bill. I'm not sure if you were made aware of this. Calvin, can we play that clip from Eric Hovde, please?
I'm not an expert on the Farm Bill because I'm not in the U.S. Senate at this point in time, so I can't opine specifically on all aspects of that Farm Bill.
I don't know. I think it's kind of like studying ahead for a test you might have, but then again, maybe not. So I have a feeling you know what's in the Farm Bill, Derin, and can opine on it. So please do.
Yes, well, thank you. And yeah, certainly it's a long document, so I can certainly understand why somebody might not know every aspect of it, which I'm in that category too. I don't know all of the intricate details, but certainly looking at 3 to 4 of the titles and having vested interest in those, it's something we need to talk to. Currently, we do not have a Farm Bill. The Farm Bill expired on September 30th of 2024 here, and it's up to the U.S. House and Congress and the Senate, and then ultimately the president to get a Farm Bill back in place. So we're hopefully lame duck session, something will happen, but it's hard to say. But just looking at a few of the different titles, certainly the conservation title, it means a lot to farmers throughout the state of Wisconsin. There's programs in there that a lot of farmers have benefits from, and would like to see that title continued where it's at in its current funding forms. There's some threat from the House side to remove some of those fundings and put it into the insurance side of the Farm Bill, which is a little scary because conservation is, I think, a little bit more important to our farmers than the insurance, although insurance on a regular basis now seems to be a bigger talking point. Then looking at the nutrition title, certainly there's differences between the House and Senate versions right now. The Senate has told the House already that if that's what comes to them, there won't be any discussions at all, because there's some limits and probably some cuts going on there. So, how can we have a negotiation between the House and Senate if neither side wants to give, which is something that's not normal. In years past, the Farm Bill has always been seen as a bipartisan bill. That's one of the easier ones to get through. And so with some of the my party first mentality that we're seeing, and on both sides there too, that they certainly need to be looking more at what's going to be better for the country than trying to make sure that the parties are taken care of.
Well, that's what compromise is. And that's why it's called reaching a compromise, because neither side gets all of the goodies that they want. You have to give up a couple of things. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, and certainly as a farmer, we have to compromise on a daily basis with Mother Nature because she always throws us curveballs the way it seems. But the issues that are really becoming the hardcore issues between the two bodies, the House and then the Senate, is there are details that certainly can be worked out, and we need to get to that point. And as farmers, we really need to see this passed before the end of the year here, because you look at 2025 and what that's going to bring. It's not an election year, so nobody's going to want to spend any money at all. And the Farm Bill disaster programs are needed, certainly looking at what's happening with the hurricanes down in the southeast. But, last year we had a major drought throughout a lot of the upper Midwest here, and we don't get the funding like they do down south a lot of times for disaster programs. But certainly, if there's cuts going somewhere, it's going to be to that disaster funding. And we need to get the bill passed this year while they're still in the mode to, make sure that there's funding available.
That makes me so sad, Derin, that we have to get to this point, right? And the level of frustration among farmers must just be off the charts. Seeing this languish and the fact that it just feels like the only reason they might do something about it now is because they need your vote.
Yeah, which is hard to figure out why they didn't do something before September 30th to make sure that there's a bill out there. But certainly if there's enough opposition in both houses, that's why it didn't happen. And it's because of some of the language and some of the program cuts or maybe additions in some cases too that one side doesn't like versus the other side. And so that's why they're continuing to fight and continuing the blame game. It's, the House is blaming the Senate's blaming the House, and, we're adults. Let's get out there and do our job and get a farm bill passed.
If you're just joining us, our guest is the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Derin von Rudin is here.
Derin, one of the things too I wanted to talk about is that fact that this isn't, this is supposed to be done by the end of September. It was supposed to actually be done last year. And they just sort of put out a thing saying, well, sorry, we're not going to be doing, we'll see you next year. And then the farmers are sitting there going, but we need this now. And when we talk about, this is a topic that we've discussed many times. And when you say something to the effect of like both sides, I feel like it's almost they either take the farmers for granted with their votes, or they say, well, they're going to vote for somebody. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of lobbying they feel like they need to do with you. So it seems like they can say, well, we'll do this later, when they have no idea the detriment it's causing for you. And something we've talked about as well is the conservation effort. If you are someone in Wisconsin, your heart's in conservation. This is a beautiful land, and it's important to conserve that, especially for our farmers. And now we are 20 plus days past the deadline, and it's unconscionable and inexcusable. And I get very, very fired up on your behalf because I am not a farmer, but still, but you're doing everything you can to try to get it done.
Yeah, certainly. We've spent time in DC in the last month and a half here now, 3 days, talking to our legislators, trying to get our points across and talk about what needs to be done. And farmers really, in times like we're at right now, where commodity prices are falling, with the exception of beef, that uncertainty, what next year could look like, is getting more uncertain right now because we don't have that farm bill. And certainly as consumers too, one thing that we're starting to talk a little bit about more is maybe it should be called the food bill instead of the farm bill, because the consumer ultimately pays the price on what happens with the farm bill, either at the grocery store or through their taxes. And looking forward, if nothing happens before the first part of January on the farm bill, we're going to revert back to the original farm bill language, which would put parity pricing on all commodities. That would be dramatic and almost unheard of for the consumer, because you're going to look at doubling, if not tripling, of the consumer prices at the grocery store, and that's because of that pricing mechanism that's there that farmers have always given. We're always price takers, and we're not price givers. So in the end, if farm bill or it doesn't get signed or an extension done before the first part of January, we could be looking at some really high prices in the grocery store.
Boy, that's a message that needs to get out there, Derin. And I think you make a really good point about calling it the food bill, because if you called it the food bill, people might actually sit up and pay attention about it, even if they're not farmers. Because as you said, it is a massive bill and it covers lots of things, and there's SNAP involved in there and all of those things. But good heavens, if, as you just said, if this doesn't get done by the beginning of January and we revert back to this parity pricing, oh boy, people are going to be unhappy.
Yeah, certainly farmers will be the beneficiaries of that, because our prices will, automatically go up overnight. But, we understand that if the price of the food at the grocery store gets to be too high, we're ultimately the ones that are called to blame for that. But then in the end, we lose those customers too at some point because they simply can't afford to buy.
Yeah,
that
sounds catastrophic.
And you also shop at those grocery stores too, so it's not like.
And you're right. Ultimately, people will go back to the farmers and yell at you, rich farmers, which is just such a misnomer. Nobody goes into farming because you want to drive a Jaguar. That's not why you go into farming. I'm assuming.
Yes. Well, if you look at a lot of the tractors that are around the countryside, they're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And so, we get by with what we got and try to improve when we can. But, a lot of years there just isn't those dollars left for those improvements.
If you're just joining us, Derin Van Rudin is here from the Wisconsin Farmers Union. He's the president, and we're talking about the languishing farm bill that continues to just sit there. We like to encourage people, Derin, to contact their constituents, to express their views.
Contact their elected officials.
Or their officials, yes, I'm sorry, backwards there. To contact their elected officials and tell them their concerns. Have you found that to be effective, I'm wondering?
Well, some years, yes, and other years, no. Certainly election years, we seem to have a lot better discussions and, get our viewpoints across. And then other years, it doesn't necessarily have to be a non-election year, but there's years when just not a whole lot happens in DC too.
There was an article. I knew we were going to get to this.
Derin's face, look at that. If you could watch the live stream right now, you're like, all right, let's. And I feel like we need to tease it right now, because it's like.
Ooh. In the Wisconsin Independent, here is the headline. It says, Western Wisconsin farmers say Derek Van Orden behavior derailed meeting on agricultural policy. Derin, what can you tell us about the meeting with Derek Van Orden in Washington?
So yeah, back in September, National Farmers Union had our yearly fall fly-in that we do around that same time every year. And we always try to get meetings with all of our elected officials. And this year we had a larger group that actually went from Western Wisconsin. There was, I believe, 10 of us that were in the room that day. And certainly when we first got there, the congressman was on the way out of the door to go help a couple of veterans, which is his heart and soul, which is great because they all need to be protected too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yep. But then when he came back, his attention focused really on me because of an ad that had been published, or it was a YouTube ad that went out, and then a letter to the editor too that had went out back in March or April, and just talking about the ineffectiveness of not getting the farm bill passed when it should have been last year, like Greg had mentioned earlier, and we're still losing 2 to 3 farms, dairy farms a day here in the state of Wisconsin, and so to call yourself the cheese king of the Capitol and say that he was the only congressman that's been on the Ag Committee in the past dozen years, which is not true. Reed Ribble actually served up until his retirement from the House in 2015. So let's get the facts straight and see what's going on. But he was not happy with that advertisement and wanted to make that point to me, and really focused about a 10-minute session on trying to call out some of the false statements that he calls in that ad.
Derin, we're going to go to break and we'll be right back and continue this conversation. We're talking to Derin von Rudin, the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Gonna work on Maggie's farm no more. I ain't gonna work on Maggie's farm no more. Well, I try my best to be just like I am, but everybody wants you to be just like them. They say sing while you slave, and I just get bored.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio, Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that used to be Twitter. Just a reminder, in-person voting gets underway today. Early absentee in-person voting gets underway today. If you want to go cast your ballot, Not sure what might happen November 5th. You decide you want to get it out of the way. Find out where to cast your ballot at myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov. Our guest is the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. He has joined us before. Derin von Rudin is here. And Derin, I'm going to do a little recap for folks who might just have joined us. But you made an ad earlier in the year talking about the languishing farm bill, which has been sitting there for well over a year, actually, and it was supposed to get passed at the end of last month. And so you and several others went to Washington, D.C., met with Derek Van Orden, and he spent the first 10 minutes of your meeting not happy that you had made that ad.
Yeah, and actually it was the last 10 minutes of the meeting. The first part of it, we were talking with his ag aide while he was out dealing with the veterans issue that he had left the office to do.
Oh, so he wasn't even there for the beginning of the meeting.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And which the first half of the meeting was actually going pretty good. We were having a good conversation with his agricultural assistant and seemed to be able to talk and do things. But certainly when the congressman came in, the attitude of the office changed.
So obviously he's very well aware of that ad, and that did not make him happy. And he remembered it to the point that he felt it necessary to, dress you down.
More or less, I call it a scolding by my representative. He didn't raise his voice or anything, but certainly didn't want to really recognize that there was other people in the room that had their stories to tell, and which is why we hold this event on a yearly basis, is to go out to DC to let our members have that conversation with our elected officials about their story and what's happening on their farms and in their communities, and how we believe that the actions of our elected officials could help to make things better around the countryside.
So Wisconsin Congressman Derek Van Orden, who sits on the farm committee, wasn't really concerned about hearing from the farmers after he got done being unhappy with you about an ad you made months ago.
Yeah, and it's the agricultural committee.
Ag committee, yes.
Yeah, just make sure we get that square. Yeah. So, and at one point in time, too, one of our members did try to interrupt and be able to tell his story and talk about things. And at that point, too, the congressman more or less said, "Well, I don't believe those numbers because it come from the Congressional Budgeting Office. CBO is what they call it for short, and that's a nonpartisan part of our government that looks at every spending bill that's out there. If it's going to have an effect on the budget, they release what they feel is going to be the cost of that bill on the budget. And looking at the House version of that, the CBO come to an estimate between $30 and $45 billion over the next 10 years if that farm bill would be implemented. And Dylan was trying to get that point across. And of course, the congressman didn't agree with it because the CBO is only right 15% of the time, which is what he is saying. So, looking at that, what do we do?
The CBO as you said, a nonpartisan.
It's the Congressional Budgetary
Office. Yeah. It is not built with lackeys and neophytes and suck-ups. These are people crunching numbers all day, every day on a myriad topics, from farming to construction to, all these things. The fact that Derek Van Orden doesn't want to believe them, and he says because it's a CBO, is ridiculous.
Well, and did he suggest alternate numbers then, Derin?
No, just that the CBO is not correct. And, and with talking with some other folks and other people that are in elected offices too, the CBO is giving you an estimate. So in reality, they should never be right. So if they're right 15% of the time, they're doing something right.
Also, they're not saying like it's going to cost $1 quadrillion.
Well, and there's methodologies to these, and they're I can't imagine what it felt like when you guys left his office. And I know you don't want to speak to the other folks who were with you, but what did you feel, Derin?
Well, really very frustrated because our members didn't get to tell their stories, and certainly that I heard that loud and clear from our members. Is we come out here with the thought process that we're going to be able to carry on a conversation and at least have a conversation. And in the end, if you don't agree with each other, you don't agree, but at least the conversation can happen. And that really didn't happen once the representative came into the office.
One would think being in Congress would require a slightly thicker skin. One might.
Yeah.
Just saying.
When I saw the story, I got like, at first I was like, oh, here we go again. He's yelling at farmers and teenagers. But honestly, the more I've thought about it, Derin, the more frustrated I get for you and your group. And I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing the story and sharing what you need from us.
Derin von Rudin is the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Thank you so very much, Derin. We'd love to have you back on if and when that darn farm bill actually gets passed. News is coming up next. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Was my
Good morning, Kristin. Can you hear me all right?
Good morning. Yes, I can.
All right, awesome. We can hear you too. We come back in just a bit over 3 minutes.
Okay, sounds great.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenhoff coming to you live from our studio in Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. You can call, you can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Jabba the Musk continues to actively ruin. Lots of things coming up this hour after the 11:30 news. Our colleague and executive producer here at Civic Media, Jamie Martison, will be joining us. We have a big election special that is going to be airing tonight, a big voting special going to be airing tonight starting at 6 o'clock all across the network. I highly encourage that you check it out. But Jamie will be here to explain all of the things that they're going to be talking about tonight at 6 p.m. Right now, though, very excited to have her back on the show. Kristin Alfhiem is here. She is running for the State Senate District 18. Good morning, Kristin. How are you?
Good morning, my friends. I am fantastic. You know why? I voted this morning. That's why.
Yep, we've been talking about this all morning, and it's an important reminder for folks. In-person absentee voting, which is also known as early voting, starts today. So you can cast your ballot today if you don't want to wait. I think it's a good idea. If you want to do that, go to myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov. All you have to do is plug in your address. It will tell you where you can go and cast your ballot. Got a bunch of texters texting in saying, thank you for the reminder. Roger from Stevens Point, going to vote early. John from Hubertus, going to vote early in person. John from Madison, already voted. Daddy-O from Windsor, already. Daddy-O.
Daddy-O.
Already voted, but thank you. My kids are going to vote tomorrow. Steve in Sun Prairie, I will be walking down to my city hall on voting day to cast mine. Thank you, Civic Media, and the torch you carry so well. Thank you so very much, Steve. That's very, very kind of you. It's really important to vote and to be a voter. And the one thing I think, Kristin, that people may not be aware of is if you vote early, that takes a little less pressure off of various campaigns because they don't have to keep sending mailers to these people or sending text to those folks, right? And so resources can be directed in other ways.
Yeah, all campaigns keep track. I shouldn't say we, people above us, people smarter than us. There's technology out there. There's information that lets us know who's out there. The knocking of the doors. I think yesterday I hit about 80 doors yesterday. And as people vote, that information, we don't know who you're voting for, but it's loaded in. So we know to move on. So when we're handing out lit, when we're sending out mailers, all of that stuff will come to an end for you, which I know you'll love. Listen, I got to tell you, I knock on doors and I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm your candidate. I know you're tired of the mail and I apologize. But imagine your face is on it. We're not enjoying it either.
I bet. Oh, that's got to be a nightmare. That has to be a nightmare. But that's just such a good point. Again, you don't have to send people to doors if they've already voted. You don't have to send out the mailers. And you don't have to get the texts anymore saying, hi, by the way.
You're still going to get the text messages.
So vote early. You can vote early starting today. It is called absentee voting, but it's in-person voting early. Go find your polling spot. Go to myvote.wi.gov. So, Kristin, you mentioned you knocked on 80 doors yesterday. What are you hearing at the doors? And specifically, the former president continues this blatant lie that children go to school one gender and they come home a different gender. I'm curious if this is gaining any traction because from friends who I have who had small children, the hoops you have to go through to make sure they can take their prescriptions is unbelievable. Much less give them a sex reassignment over lunch.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I know that there are people that believe that.
They do believe it.
Unfortunately, that conversation is going on. However, in the thousands of doors that I've done, it's probably been mentioned maybe once or twice. So it is not the top of the conversation without question. So it's a shame it's there. And actually, and I'm expecting in the next 2 weeks there to be more ads against me. And there is a fear there because clearly they are ramping up the language on the anti-trans, the Tammy Baldwin ads, the Kamala ads. There is definitely an uptick in the volume on the trans and the LGBT thing. So, it's a real fear with me being of that community. What the next, the Uline ads that will be coming out. They just bought, I think, 300 points on the last 2 weeks, each of the last 2 weeks. So again, it's unfortunate that we can't just talk about the reality. Instead, we're talking about issues that truly are not affecting anyone's kitchen tables. We should be talking about kitchen table issues. That is the cost of healthcare, the cost of childcare, the cost of groceries. We should be having these conversations. And instead, there's millions and millions of dollars being spent in spreading silly lies that just cause harm. And that needs to come to an end.
And they're harmful. This is harmful. And
they are harmful.
It is. That was a great encapsulation, Kristin, because this is another squirrel. This is another squirrel to distract people from kitchen table issues, from childcare, from all of those things. The percentage of trans people in this country is minuscule.
Right.
Minuscule.
Right. It's just, it's sad. And again, I spoke to a professor at Lawrence who's in gender studies. And when I first ran 2 years ago, because I needed to understand more, many of us don't necessarily understand the trans thing, even if we're in the LGBT community. But the first thing should be to learn, to be more curious than judgmental. And what she had said to me is that trans is the new gay. Because as people, as our circles widen, more and more people are becoming more comfortable with the fact that someone they've known for 27 years and have loved, whether it's a family member, a coworker, or a softball buddy, whatever, they're gay.
Yeah.
But they're just real people. So the edges of the Republican Party has softened on that. So now the conversation is, but here's what you don't understand. So therefore, you're going to be afraid of it. People are afraid of what they don't understand. And it's unfortunate. Again, we have spent far too much time on every airwave talking about illegal immigrants, voting questions, and trans issues. I'm here in Appleton, and any city that's the size of Appleton, our elections are audited. Every election is audited afterwards for its effectiveness, for its safetiness, and we score amazing numbers every time. So why these conversations take place is because someone wants us to talk about this and create fear that does not exist. That is not right. Again, who's poking at problems and who's actually talking about real issues and solutions? It's pretty clear right now.
Our guest is Kristin Alfhiem. If you're just joining us, she is running for the state Senate seat in the 18th district and talking about, again, all the advertisements. And yes, we're going to see many, many more. We got 14 days to go.
Oh, yeah.
Continue to ramp up the hateful, frightening rhetoric because it is about inventing fear of the other. As you said, Kristin, it's very easy to make us afraid of things we don't know about and don't necessarily fully understand. That's the goal. It's the goal to keep us talking about those non-important things and avoid Project 2025 and what that would do to fundamentally change our democracy.
Right. I mean, there's so many things that are out there that we're trying. Again, we all know what hurts. And it's okay to talk about the fact that there are pains right now at our kitchen table. But we need to be able to talk about the solutions that are being offered. How are we helping our small business people move forward? How are we helping to increase the workforce? How are we making it better? Those are the conversations that people are dying to have. And instead, there's just nonsense. And we have to just focus beyond the noise and get down to it. Who's addressing the problems? Who is trying to make it feel better? There are so many things that have been done in the last 4 years to help us. There are so many more things that we've tried to do, and there has been people standing in the way. Let's acknowledge the realities of how can we help each other be better. And again, right now, it's Team Blue all day.
Kristin, do you see that on the doors when you go to talk to people, that sense of, oh, you're here to talk to me? You're paying attention? Because I feel like a lot of problems that people have is that they don't feel like the politicians are paying attention to them, are giving them any sort of a mind on what the issues are. And if the Republicans just wanted to say, they're the reasons why your groceries are so high, they're the reasons why, instead they're going for this crazy rhetoric. But then there's you knocking on the door in your neighborhoods, in your marked off areas saying, hey, I'm Kristin, I'm running for office. What concerns you? Do you have a reaction to that? Do they have a reaction to you doing that? Are they, I don't want to say impressed by that, but excited?
Well, I wouldn't say excited. I would say stunned. And it's stunned. And I truly have said that at every door until recently. Once we got into the get out the vote, we pretty much are starting to know who we're talking to. But when it was in the moderate universe, the persuasion, every door I said, here's who I am. I'm on your ticket. I'm here to listen. What would you like to tell me or ask me? And most of the time the response was, I don't have anything. And I literally would lean in. I'm like, yes, you do. I said, magic wand me. There's no wrong answers. Tell me what you need to say, because people need to be heard. And you need to know that I'm willing to listen no matter what comes out of your mouth. And that follow-up tends to be, are you a Democrat or Republican? I said, should it matter? If I'm elected, my job is to listen to you no matter what. And that's what I'm here to do. And I just and it's amazing that once we get past that, then we can have conversations. And 9 times out of 10, that conversation leads to positive action. again, people have a right to say, this is the pain point that I have, or this is what I'm afraid of. But we have to be willing to bring down the rhetoric so that we can actually hear each other and have a conversation about what we agree on and what we're attempting to do to make it better.
Yeah, shouting over each other is rarely an effective communication strategy.
Yeah.
And lobbing each other with insults and profanities is also not an effective conversation strategy.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will touch on this, and then we're heading into a break, but I want to say that I met one of those, elusive undecideds at the top of the ticket yesterday. It was my very last door that I went to knock on. And her answer was, I'm just not sure. I don't like our choices. I don't like what's up there. And I said, okay, it is confusing and there are no perfect candidates, but let's talk about what we do know. Do we believe Kamala came from a middle-class family? Yes. Do we believe that she went to college and worked through it? Yes. Do we believe she has kindness at her base? Yes. And will she surround herself with people that makes her better? End of conversation.
Kristin Alfhiem is our guest. We're going to continue our conversation right after this. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Board Lord coming to you from our studio in Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. You can call. You can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment. If you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter, our guest is Kristin Alfhiem. She's the candidate for the State Senate District 18, which includes Appleton and many other areas around Appleton. What is your district now, Kristin?
It's a beautiful district, wraps tightly around.
It's the best district.
It's the best. It's a huge district. It's a fantastic district. It truly is. It is now a very tight little crescent around the west side of Lake Winnebago. Starts out with the bulk of Appleton, Nina, Menasha, and Oshkosh, all wrapped into a beautiful little bundle.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
We were talking before we went to break. Donald Trump continues this lie because it is a lie. And he said it yesterday that children are going to school one gender and they're coming back another gender. And he always says, isn't that unbelievable? And it's like, well, yes, because it is not believable because it's not happening. Texter on WAUK says that is the stupidest lie. As a former school secretary, I couldn't give any medication without parental consent. Imagine if I tried to take a child and have their gender changed over lunch. It's just not a thing.
You would go to jail.
Yes, you would go to jail. And the other thing that amazes me too, Kristin, is why no one has ever asked him, I want to talk to the parents of this kid.
Yeah.
Where are the parents of these children that are getting these surgeries and they're coming back a different gender at the end of the school day? Why aren't reporters all over this trying to track
I know.
down these
Journalists
people?
try to track down every story that was told from the far Republican Party right now. We would never see them because they'd be chasing ghosts. They don't exist. So again, my opinion is he's winning at this point because we continue to talk about it. It is that asinine that we continue to have these conversations. And the one thing you got to give Donald Trump, he is a marketer. He is a marketer of mayhem. And he effectively is doing it. What's his name? Hovde is doing the same thing now. Hovde, he lies. This is the world. This is what, it's been 50 years in the making that the far right has created this media machine of hateful, spiteful lies that create shiny object that gets the attention of very short attention spans. And it just expands as it's repeated over and over again. This is not by accident. This is something that's been going on. I just watched, there's a great documentary out there right now called The Brainwashing of My Dad. You should watch it. It goes all the way back to, I think, 1972, and why and how everything happened and how it is affecting our people when the information that's going in is capsulated by a certain flavor and how it changes people and the dynamic, and thousands of people jumped into that story saying the same thing happened to my dad, the same thing happened to my aunt, and how the media itself has been pushing people from the left to the right on purpose for 50 years. We're not here by accident.
And as you said, it's called the brainwashing of my dad.
The Brainwashing of My Dad. It's either Netflix or Prime, one of the two, but outstanding. There's a lot of information. Anybody that takes the time to load knows this information is out there, but that story, it talks about the impact on the individual and how the individual themselves, kind, normal people change and they've become so angry. And why? How did it happen?
I had a friend of mine whose mother was a retired teacher, taught for decades, liberal, blue to the core, retired 1 year, hardcore Republican, because she sat at home and watched Fox News all day long.
All day.
The thing too, Kristin, is what's really worrisome for me is, 4 years ago, I feel like there was this thing of like, no to Trump. Nobody likes him. No, we're done with him. But he's back now, and he's starting to affect younger people of all groups, Black, Latino, queer groups. I mean, there are, and more than I care to admit, being part of the community too, of queer people who dislike trans people and feel like they're not part of the community for whatever their reasons may be. And people like Eric Hovde and Donald Trump are stoking that fire and getting them fired up over him. They're like, I can't trust the left. I can't trust Kamala Harris. Donald Trump's the only one who cares about us. I don't understand how you think for a moment that man cares for you. And not even like gay people, anyone, period.
It's the whole philosophy of if you're struggling, someone is to blame.
Yeah.
And then that media just points them towards these people. And the tendency is to point at people below you. They must be the problem. When the reality, it's all just smoke and mirrors. The challenge is so far above our heads.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the Democrats have finally stopped saying that it's the wealthy. It's not the wealthy, because anybody in middle class that has worked their way up wants to consider themselves wealthy because they've worked really hard to get there. We're talking the billionaires of the world. the few and far between billionaires whose wealth is tenfold in the last 10 years as we struggle for the crumbs. And the blame in the middle class has been forced downwards when it really is distracting them from where it actually is. That is the reality of what's going on.
That's an excellent point, Kristin. It really is. That's where our ire should be directed, at the Diane Hendricks, at the E-Lines, pumping in millions and millions and millions of dollars
Yes.
to buy elections.
And
And
mine is the case. They just dropped $2 million into 2 races in the Senate because they can. Because they can. That's not right.
Money has nothing to them. That money, those
Nothing.
few $1 million
No.
is nothing to them.
Oh,
Nick-
and that's the other thing too, which is a longer discussion, and we're running out of time. If the tax rates on the ultra wealthy were increased, they'd still be really, 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 really rich.
Yeah. If you added a 0.5% wealth tax on billionaires only, it would tremendously impact. We could immediately take care of the systems that we need to, and 99.99% of the people would never be affected unless it was a positive effect.
Kristin Alfhiem has been our guest. She's running for the state senate in District 18. Carrie Ann, listening on WGBW. I voted this morning for that incredible woman. Go, go, go. Good luck, Kristin. Thank you
Appreciate
so
you guys.
much.
Go
News
vote.
is next. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the statewide, countrywide, global Civic Media Radio Network.
Good morning, Jamie. Can you hear me all right?
I can. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
All right. Yeah, I can hear you great. We come back in about 90 seconds.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Hey, Jamie, can you turn your camera on when we go live?
I do not have a camera on this setup since we moved. We have not gotten one set up on it yet.
That is perfectly all right.
All right. Just so you know. Sorry.
No worries.
Vote for me, vote for me. I want the nomination for the presidency.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calviente on the board, coming to you from our studio at the Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. It's day 2. Cut me some slack.
No, I love it.
You can always call. You can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Jabba the Musk hates that we continue to call Twitter. We're going to wrap up the show today around 11:51, as we usually do, with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today, funeral edition.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Stay tuned for that. And if you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at Jane Says, JANESAYS. Jane Says at civicmedia.us. We have an hour-long election special crossing the airwaves tonight. It's called Making Your Vote Count, and it starts at 6 p.m. Jamie Martison is joining us now. She's our colleague and a Civic Media executive producer. Jamie, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you.
You put a lot of work into this.
We did. And first of all, I got to say, I want to go back to the election music. That was really fun. And happy voting day, everybody, because it's officially underway, is it not? Now, I have to tell you, I am a huge political nerd. So this is like the Super Bowl for me, which I also love the Super Bowl, but I'm a huge political nerd. I have a binder of all the I voted stickers I've kept since 18 years old. And I put the year and then the city in which I voted. That's how big of a political nerd I am. So
I always want to do that, Jamie, but then they fall off my shirt and then get like fall on the ground. Because I always want to wear them proud.
I know.
And then through a day of working and living, you're like, where did it's gone?
I know.
That's impressive, Jamie. That's really quite impressive.
Thank you. I had to absentee this year, so I don't have one for 2024. I'm hoping, though, maybe somebody listening could, get me a sticker.
Oh, I can get you. I'll get you.
You heard it here first, folks. Right. Civic Media is voter sticker fraud.
I want my sticker. I got to put it in the binder because I did vote. In fact, my absentee went in a couple of weeks ago. But at any rate, as you can see, I love voting, right? And so when we decided that we were going to do this voting special, I was so excited. And it is going to be a really great time tonight. As you said, Jane, from 6 to 7, it's called Making Your Vote Count 2024. And this is being hosted by your Civic Media host, Maggie Dawn, as well as political editor Dan Schaefer. And I know he's a regular on your show on Fridays, correct? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, we have an incredible lineup of people tonight. It's going to start out with a little education because, as we all know, there's been a lot of changes to how you vote in the state of Wisconsin over the last few years. So Doctors Tim Slecker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci are going to be joining us tonight. If you've ever listened to the Busted Pencils podcast over at
great.
civicmedia.us, you got to check them out. They're social studies teachers, right? They kind of get into this stuff. And so we thought, who better to teach us the nuts and bolts of voting than a couple of guys who are already teachers and happen to teach a little social studies and civic. So that's how we're starting things off, right? And then later in the evening, we're going to be joined by journalist and author Ari Berman. He's going to talk about the shift in Wisconsin politics, especially since 2010. And so he's got some incredible things to say. If you've read any of his work, you know he's awesome anyway. So we're very lucky to have him.
Yeah,
And
he was
then-
on Todd Alba's show a couple of weeks ago. He was fantastic.
Yes. And Todd's going to actually be helping us out once again with that interview for Ari tonight on the show. And then we're going to round things out. For about the last half hour, we've assembled this incredible nonpartisan panel of experts from the state of Wisconsin. We have former Republican Governor Scott McCallum joining us tonight, along with Marge Bostelman. She is a former Wisconsin Elections Commissioner. We also have Nick Ramos from Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. He's the executive director of that incredible organization. And they're going to be addressing some of the, let's say, misinformation about the elections that we've seen and heard since 2020. Some of the things surrounding the counts and some of the things that, just make it a little difficult for some people to really want to get to the poll. So they're going to tell us all of the things that are actually true about some of that misinformation that loves to spread on social media and has for a few years now. And then that panel is going to actually stick around to round out the show with us to really hone in on some of the things we can do to protect ourselves from some of those falsehoods that we hear in social media and in the world. And they're also going to tell us how we can make sure that when we go to the polls, either during this early voting period or on November 5th, that we can make sure that our votes are counted. Some of those tips and tricks, like just checking things twice, making sure your signatures are in place if you're doing the absentee. So they're really going to let us know what we need to do to be better voters in this particular election. So we're very excited. It's going to be a good time. And yes, you're right. We have worked really hard. It's been a very collaborative effort from a lot of people, but we are so excited to be bringing this to Civic Media tonight.
Well, and Jamie, I think it's so important, especially for that last half hour, because we're talking about election integrity, because there have been all these rumors for all of these years now that things aren't safe and the election was stolen and blah, blah, blah. But to have bipartisan people who have seen the process, worked the process, know the process, to help talk people off the ledge, because the amount of the network it would require of conspiracists to actually successfully overturn a fair election it will blow your mind. It just wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen.
And it can't. And that's the other thing about tonight's special is our news team and Dan, they've all reached out to all of these incredible county clerks. And they're actually we have some sound bites from all of them, from a lot of them. I shouldn't say all of them. There are 1,850 the entire state. That would take way more than an hour.
It's a very long show.
Really long show.
Tomorrow morning, we'll finally wrap that up. But we've assembled some of them, and they talk about some of those things. We have the Dane County Clerk who's going to join us. We have comments from the La Crosse County Clerk, as well as Milwaukee. Paulina Gutierrez is going to join us and talks a little bit about some of the things, just what you're saying about how it would be really hard to manipulate those counts, because we're even going to get into a little bit of how Milwaukee does things differently with the central count versus just counting the ballots. And that's where you start to see, and I don't want to give too much of the show away because we want everybody to listen, but that's where you start to see some of those conspiracy theories come into play, because people go to bed, right? We've heard this over and over. Candidates winning, you wake up the next morning and all of a sudden they're not. And so those are some of the things that this panel is going to be disputing tonight and telling us the real facts about.
And that's something that we've spent some time on, Jamie, because we had the opportunity, our state legislature had the opportunity to put into law that they could have started counting those absentee ballots early, and it went to the Senate and it died there. So I personally think that this is by design. So when once again Milwaukee has more ballots coming in later or getting counted later, that's going to raise suspicion of some hanky-panky.
Yeah.
And the only reason that that's happening is because they wouldn't allow those ballots to be counted before Election Day.
Well, I got a little surprise for you. Dan Schaefer was even took the time to talk to Scott Krug, who was the representative who brought Assembly Bill 567 to this past session. And we're going to hear a little bit from Scott Krug tonight as well about that particular bill and why they actually why he in particular wanted to bring this bill to light. And then we've got a few more surprises that we're going to tell you about inside that special. I know. Like we really, I hate to keep teasing it like that, but we really, really have worked hard. And we wanted to be doing this special. We wanted to make this as transparent as absolutely possible for all of our listeners, all of the people who listen on the stream, because this is just a really important election, right? And everybody is voting for different reasons this year. And it doesn't matter why you're voting. The thing is you should vote. I mean, you should do that in every single election. I'm going to go on my little, Super Bowl platform of voting here and pull out my binder of stickers here in a second. But everybody should vote no matter what election it is. But this one, for some reason this year, for a lot of people, just feels way more important than it ever has. And we really wanted to make sure that we weren't alienating anybody with this particular special. And we want to just get the message out that no matter where you're at in this cycle, just go exercise your right to vote. That's how democracy was built.
And we were talking with Kristin Alfhiem before you joined us, Jamie. One thing that voting early does is it allows campaigns to direct their resources to voters who still have not cast their ballot. So they do not know how you voted, but they know if you voted and when you voted. So then therefore they can take, the door knockers who might have been in your neighborhood and send them to a different neighborhood. And then hopefully they'll stop pestering you for money. That's just another advantage. It's just one of those unsung advantages of voting early.
I got to tell you, I'm one of those people who loves it when they come to my door, especially if it's from the party I disagree with.
I bet you do.
Oh, I do. And I don't try to be rude, but just sometimes you just got to start asking them questions just to see the response that they're going to give or not give in some instances. Some days, I'm kind of a nerd like that. I've been at home with my kids for a very long time. Some days it's just sheer entertainment. It really, truly is.
Finding joy wherever you go. Jamie Martison is our guest, talking about the great election special that we're going to have tonight. Bill from Oconomowoc has been hanging on the line. Good morning, Bill. Thanks for joining us. What did you want to say?
Well, I don't know if your listeners are aware of it. Trump lost the election in 2016 by 3 million votes. The only reason he became president was the Electoral College.
Yep.
And if you want to know how did that work out, James Comey could tell you, but he was fired.
No, you're right, Bill. And thank you for calling. Thank you for listening. Yes, Donald Trump lost the popular vote by about 3 million votes. And I remember distinctly, he formed this election commission that was going to find all of these illegal votes. And it was headed up by Chris Kobosh, who ended it after 2 months because they could not find evidence of this massive voter fraud because it doesn't exist.
Right. And tonight we're gonna again, we've got somebody who worked in the elections on this panel, and Marge Bostelman actually lost her job because she didn't go far enough for her party, and those are just some of the things that we're going to kind of dive into tonight and really talk about some of that misinformation. I mean, that's essentially what it is. And, without putting words into the mouth of any of our county clerks, the one thing is we talked to them and we did these interviews getting ready for this special. the first thing they all said, just stay off social media. Just stay off social media. Don't do it. Talk to your neighbors. Because one of the biggest things that we found talking to these county clerks, and as people listening know, the poll workers, they're your neighbors. And if you can't absolutely trust the people you live next to that you would, like back in the 1950s, go borrow the sugar from or whatever, or just talk to over the fence or whatever it is on a daily basis. I mean, who are you going to trust? And they all want to be, these county clerks all want to be as transparent as possible. The ones we talked to for this particular special all said, if you have a question, just ask us. I mean, give us a call.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do this because they care about our political process, not because it's such a sexy job being an election clerk. And they certainly shouldn't be getting death threats over it either.
No.
Jamie Martison has been our guest. She is our colleague and an executive producer with Civic Media. Listen to the great election special tonight, Making Your Vote Count, starting at 6 p.m. across the network. Thank you so very much for joining us, Jamie. Can't wait to listen tonight.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Stay with us. We're going to wrap things up with This Shouldn't Be a Thing Funeral Edition. That's on the way on Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Vote for me. You got to vote for me. I'm a winner, baby. I'm the man, yes I am. Here I stand. I do everything I can. Yes, I'm a winner. Yes, I'm a winner, baby. Yeah. Keep the calling and it's coming in. Now won't you give me a chance?
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our home in Radio Park here in Racine. You can always join us. You can call. You can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4700. 4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. In-person absentee voting, also known as early voting, starts today across Wisconsin. You can go cast your ballot, find out where you need to go. You've got a bunch of options. Go to myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov. All you do is type in your address and it will bring up your ballot. You can take a look at it ahead of time. Just a reminder as well, there is yet another constitutional amendment on this ballot that will change one word from every U.S. citizen to only U.S. citizens and their ability to vote. In my estimation, this is an effort to open the doorway to narrow the definition of who fits only American citizens.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I will be voting no.
We think you should be voting no.
You can also go to the League of Women Voters Wisconsin. They can explain it probably better to you than I just did. But essentially, that's what it is. It is a one-word change. And we're not hearing all excited Robin Voss and the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty and all these Republicans coming out saying how great this is. They're kind of quiet about this.
They're keeping their trash opinions to themselves.
Yeah, so I'll be voting no on the constitutional amendments. Just vote. Just go vote. All right, it is 11:53. That means it is time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you have a thing that should not be, send it in to Greg and me. Jane says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS at civicmedia.us. Greg Bach, you found this morning's This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Yeah, just perusing through all the pages of the newspapers. Like I get like 50, 60 newspapers delivered to my house every day, and it takes a long so busy, and they're all dedicated to weird stories. And this one came out of Warsaw, Poland. A funeral home in Poland issued an unusual apology on Saturday after a corpse that it was transporting fell out of a hearse and into traffic.
Oh, you never want that to happen.
I knew this would be something you'd be interested in based on your history. And,
my father was a mortician.
And I wonder if there was any technical advice you could give to them, or what do you do when the hearse opens up and a surprise
falls out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should not be a thing.
Correct.
And from what I understand, there was a problem with the latch on the hearse.
Yes.
Which is how this happened.
Yes.
It's not like someone was opening the door to get a breath of fresh air back there. You want to double check that it's locked?
Well, of course, yeah. I would go as far as say triple check.
Yeah. I'm sure they will be in future.
Yes.
Because that's really not something you want tagged on your funeral home. My father would have said, you never want that to happen at a funeral.
No.
Yeah, you never, no.
I feel like that's first day teaching on.
So he's a new funeral director?
A new funeral director.
Or driver.
Day 101. Like, don't let the body. Also, I just want to say the name of the company that transported the corpse was Hades Funeral Service. I don't want to work with them.
Hades, Hades.
Yeah.
Hades Funeral Services. That's kind of a double. This shouldn't be a thing.
You can send your reviews straight to hell.
We're Hades Funeral Services, and we don't care.
Yeah.
Yes, they did have quite.
You're lucky we picked the body up in the first place.
You should be grateful. Here's the quote they gave. It is with deep regret. We must inform you that as a result of an unexpected technical failure of the electric tailgate lock in the hearse during the transport of the deceased, an unfortunate event occurred which does not reflect the high standards of our company, our deep empathy towards the families, and the respect we always show. The companies apologize to all who were upset by this event, and that's what you do. Then, yeah, we didn't mean for this to happen. That's not usually part of our service.
I just imagine if this company was in America, they'd be like, "It's the liberals' fault."
If you ever have a thing that should not be, Calvin, do you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I mean, and when you add the name of the funeral company on top of this, it sounds like a Steve-O Johnny Knoxville prank.
Yeah,
it does real.
I just want to imagine like a new logo now. It's just like the silhouette of a car. and the back doors are open on fire and a body's falling out. Hades funeral service. We'll get you there like the Dickens.
That may not be as successful as you think.
Yeah, I mean,
but I like it.
Yeah, I'm just working with what they're giving me here. I mean, they say it doesn't reflect their values, but it certainly does give them a new way to look at their marketing.
Well, they may want to consider a name change. We're just throwing it out there. Hades Funeral Services. I don't know. You may want to rethink that. All right. If you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it into Greg and me at Jane Says at civicmedia.us. JANESAYS at civicmedia.us. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
We have a very, very busy show coming up for you tomorrow. We will have Dr. Laura Hanks will be here for a public service announcement. Also, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez is going to be here.
Yep, Sarah Rodriguez at 10:33, Sid Chartier at 11 o'clock, Dr. Hanks at 11:30. It's a packed week.
It's a packed week. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers and everyone across Civic. Without you, nothing works. Thank you most of all for calling and for texting and for listening. It means the world. I hope you find some joy today and you have the chance to share it. Stay close. News is next, followed by Todd Alba. Keep it here on the vast global Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you tomorrow.